Heritage Education Network Belize, Culture Symposium, Community Issues and Innovative Practices. Make sure you join with our Facebook and YouTube. I want to there, you better be there.
Allah we know that you are there.
Good afternoon and welcome back, and a warm welcome to any viewers just joining us. It is my pleasure to now kick off the afternoon of our second and last day of our KULCHA Symposium. We will begin this afternoon's session on how education and the arts have transformed ideas, ways of knowing, and analyzing our Belizean society today. This is under the theme, Exploring Belize's Diverse, Sustainable Orange Economy. Our first presentation this afternoon is a joint research developed by Dr. Danae Fairweather and Dr. Jason Vassar-Elong titled Culture Border Crossing, Developing a Sustainable Educational Curricula for the African Diaspora. Dr. Fairweather is a doctoral lecturer at John Jay College and an adjunct professor at Galen University in Belize. Dr. Fairweather's research interests are situated within the field of educational anthropology. Here, she focuses on documenting, exploring, and describing the educational experiences of individuals in the African diaspora, including Belize, Brazil, and Florida in the United States. These experiences serve as a framework for building educational systems based on what they could look like from a learner's perspective. Dr. Fairweather has founded and owns ESE Counseling, LLC, an educational consultant business emphasizing diversity and inclusive education and developing innovative educational technologies that promote diversity and social emotional learning. ESE Consulting LLC offers an applied anthropological-based curriculum called Anthropology in Motion for adolescent youth. Let us welcome Drs. Fairweather and Vassar-Elong's presentation, Cultural Border Crossing, Developing a Sustainable Educational Curricula for the African Diaspora.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jason Vassar-Elong, and my colleague, Dr. Danae Fairweather, and I are here to present our global and digital prototype, Cultural Border Crossing, or CBC, a sustainable educational curriculum for the African diaspora.
We want all learners to not only have access to this content, but to also connect with each other in an epistemological way.
We also want to ensure that members of the African diaspora have access to this curriculum, which includes translation into indigenous African languages of all the curriculum components. We intend to consult with our networks for those translations.
Thanks, Jason. And for this presentation, we would like to outline the elements of our CBC curriculum to you. We will begin by sharing the rationale and background information of our model. Next, we will describe the theoretical framework used to build CBC and the teaching method that will be used to reach the CBC objectives. The cultural implications of CBC will be explored, and we will end with a call to action to get you, our viewers, involved.
Thank you, Dania. So, as educational anthropologists, we understand culture to be the ways in which people live and interpret the world around them. In our approach, we offer nuance of the lived experiences of members of the African diaspora to promote mutual respect and understanding, and to address anti-Blackness where applicable. Cultural border crossing, as a practice in learning how to participate in different cultures, helps us to accomplish this task. Our framework was developed by Akinhead and Jajebe in 1999 and affirms that cultural border crossing aims to, quote, develop culturally sensitive curricula and teaching methods that reduce the foreignness felt by students, end quote. In our case, members of the African diaspora. So, to provide a little bit of context, in 1924, Western society maintained its stereotype that Africans, now the term in this era was Negro, but moreover, they postured that we were illiterate, incapable, and inferior. Scholars of the Pan-African movement, however, argued for the unification of Black people worldwide to overcome these naturalizing discourses and to cultivate a system of Black pride and prosperity.
And to add on to what Jason mentioned, concerns with the displacement of Africans, Pan-African scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey postured an opposing view. While Garvey supported the notion that Black people should create their own separate nation devoid of white supremacy, Du Bois argued that Black people should fully integrate into the system. To that end, cultural border crossing curriculum intends to use these ideas as a foundation to dismantle those naturalizing discourses that have been systematically used to weaken the self-efficacy of members of the African diaspora.
Thank you, Dania. So, our hypothesis and assumptions, even though we have demonstrated our intellectual abilities, contributed to society in a myriad of ways. For example, we become inventors, we give service to the military, etc. We are still prone to violence by virtue of our being African people. Therefore, the assumption behind CBC is that members of the African diaspora are not educated about the social cultural histories and experiences of fellow members of that diaspora. And as a result, it creates cultural dissonance, the separation of culture and practice, and alienation among us. For example, musical artist Akon from Senegal said that Black people in the United States don't have a culture, not acknowledging the musical genius that has manifested among members of the African diaspora in the Americas since their arrival.
CBC also assumes that by virtue of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization, Black people in the Americas have become removed from the cultural practices of our ancestral homeland. Herein, our curriculum will provide opportunities for communal sharing as we recover those practices. We ask, how do we relearn these things like language that have been taken from us? For example, this curriculum is written and presented in English. Dr. Ilong's heritage traces to the Benleke in Cameroon, and there, the national languages are English and French. That he and his relatives in Cameroon can communicate in English is a direct reflection of his family's history surrounding chattel slavery in the Americas and colonization in Cameroon.
Thank you for mentioning that, Dania. And lastly, CBC also assumes that Afro-intellectualism has not protected members of the African diaspora from racism and inequality, even among members within the community. For instance, in some cases, there are Black American biases against Africans and Afro-Caribbeans. CBC questions if this is by design and if these things are just part of our reality. Furthermore, these biases create division among us. Note that we are not saying all, we are saying some, but even the few that hold true to these beliefs, it causes division.
And so this brings us to our theoretical framework. Because this problem is multidimensional, our theoretical framework also has to be multidimensional. In the first place, CBC utilizes Pierre Bourdieu's capital theory, which emphasizes three forms of capital: economic, social, and cultural, all of which influences an individual's position and disposition in social reality throughout their lifetime.
Thank you, Dania. So while speaking about cultural border crossing and assimilated performance, we understand that race is a social construct, and within it are ideals that place Eurocentrism, or whiteness, at the pinnacle, and Afrocentrism, or Blackness, at the bottom. Furthermore, one's proximity to whiteness, i.e. linguistics, cultural practices, etc., equates to social capital. Within the African diaspora, there have been long-held beliefs that one's proximity to whiteness equates to success. And our aim is to help members of the African diaspora understand how this cultural phenomenon affects the global community.
So to bring this all together and to connect the academy to the community, CBC also prioritizes practice theory, which emphasizes an individual's actions and behaviors and how social reality is created through repetitive acts. It is within this framework we can see how theory turns into practice.
Thank you, Dania. So here we have our research questions. So these research questions will be used to expand our curriculum into a model that educators can use in their classrooms. We have a survey course that will be used to collect data about the lived experiences of those within the African diaspora. And while collecting those data, we will expand upon our research to reflect those experiences to create companion courses. Currently, we envision a set of 5 courses that address different aspects of the aforementioned lived experiences. But as our research continues, we will adjust accordingly. Our research questions will be used to guide conversations among members of the African diaspora. And as we have discourse around our histories and lived experiences as they pertain to chattel slavery in the Americas and colonization on the continent of Africa. Our research questions will endeavor to challenge institutions of higher learning to include curricula like ours that provide nuance for students.
And this approach for the curriculum centers on an anthropological traditional approach for understanding the human condition. Now, these elements include evolutionary, holistic, comparative, and field-based. So how will this look? First, in the first place, we will have ongoing panel discussion focus groups and open educational forums that will be organized and facilitated to uncover truths and realities about their professional and social experiences as members of the African diaspora. This data will be analyzed, synthesized, and compared to gain nuanced insights into the Afro experience. These activities will be documented and used to develop holistic learning outcomes, and activities will be used in the curriculum.
Thank you, Dania. So here we look at our pedagogical approach, our methodology. This section focuses on what we currently do in our survey course. We are engaging in case study learning so students gain a foundational understanding of Afro-intellectualism and begin to see themselves as active participants in the research process. Through art and problem-based learning, the learner will be able to elevate their digital competencies while expressing their ideas and research to the global African community. Examples from lessons used in the classroom as case studies will provide hard examples in our theoretical framework in practice.
And this directly links to our part of our theoretical framework of practice theory. I would like to focus here on the application section of CBC. We intend to use a service learning model, where we are encouraging learners to participate in community service and reflect on this experience as part of coursework, while developing a vital and critical consciousness of the communities served. And all of this will be prioritized. In this model, service learning will help the learner realize the reality as they collaborate with organizations and businesses in their local communities. Knowledge will be gained by applying theories learned in the academy to some of the most pressing local community issues. The modality that will be used, as mentioned before, as Jason mentioned, it will be arts-based learning, while at the same time improving digital competencies.
Thank you, Dania. And so here we have our course description. This CBC survey course offers an overview of issues as they relate to members of the African diaspora. The first in a series of 5, this course will provide a lens by which members of the African diaspora may begin to understand and respect lived experiences.
And for the CBC course as well, we will articulate how cultural and historical dissonance manifest in the learner's social reality. So we will design and conduct digital research projects that address community-based issues. We will collaborate effectively to develop research projects that promote cultural sustainability. And finally, we will apply theoretical frameworks in professional and social situations.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, we provide this data and this curriculum for institutions, and so you're absolutely right, Dania.
Yeah.
To keep with the theme of cultural border crossing, we envision educators as conductors that help students grapple with nuance. History is lost to those without proper context, and providing that context will enable students to learn via holistic perspectives.
And thinking about history from a nuanced perspective allows for true learning to take place. So take, for example, the history of the 13 colonies in the United States and colonial Belize, and how indentured servitude was used to build these colonies. We can also examine the history of chattel slavery in the Americas and how this became the law of the land that was taken from the indigenous. We can analyze the ways in which both change and continuity have affected the human experience.
Thank you, Dania. So the cultural impact of CBC will be important as students develop skills that help them identify relationships among ideas from cultural and historical perspectives in real-world context. We believe that students are stakeholders whose education is predicated on an abolitionist approach to teaching, whereby we do not penalize them for what they do not know, but rather encourage students ample opportunities to strengthen their knowledge base. Our curriculum positions students to build on what they already know as they learn more about their ever-changing world.
And right, Jason, and it is in this context that CBC intends to frame a comparative context to critically assess the ideas, forces, and values that have created the modern and united African diasporic community.
And so here we have our call to action. To that end, we are recruiting people to participate in our focus groups. More specifically, we are seeking members of the African diaspora that are willing to share their lived experiences.
If you are interested in participating in CBC focus groups, please scan the QR code or register in advance by emailing us, and we will send you the direct registration link. This link is also located on the slide.
Thank you, Dania. So we would like to take a moment and just thank our ancestors for being who they are. Additionally, we would like to thank the Heritage Education Network Belize, the Association of Black Anthropologists, our respective universities, Galen University and the University of Missouri St. Louis, and finally, each other for our tireless commitment to our community and our partnership as colleagues and as friends. Feel free to contact us accordingly.
And thank you again for listening to our presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so very, very much to our first presenters, Dr. Fairweather and Dr. Jason. I understand Dr. Jason is representing the Pierre-Laclede graduated, apologies. I believe that Dr. Jason Vassar-Ilong is representing the Pierre-Laclede, please correct me if I said that correctly, Honors College at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. I do have a couple of questions for you both, but I will save that for the Q&A portion of our session this morning. And I also did really want to also state that one of the ways that I think the Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa view the diaspora in the United States, I feel like this particular presentation has given us a little bit more of an insight of what we already know. What we understand is based on what we see in the media. So it's always wonderful to get insight from professionals such as yourself on these particular topics. So I'm very interested in the Q&A session for that presentation. We would also like to remind our audience that the Q&A session is scheduled for the end of each session. So please put your comments and questions in the comment sections on Facebook or YouTube for our presenters to see and answer Our Q&A will begin immediately after the presentation, so get your questions up and going now. Our second presentation is done by Ms. Yaoling Lee. Let us welcome her presentation titled Sharing My Art Journey with You, Beautiful Belize City. Ms. Yaoling Lee loves working from life. When we open our senses, we process our surroundings, and thus our experiences are transformed into something extraordinary. The mood, the atmosphere from the street sceneries, the landscapes, seascapes, and the people from Belize are her inspirations. It can be simply a pencil drawing, a watercolor urban sketch, a plain air oil painting, a portrait, or even a bust. No matter what medium she uses to capture what's right in front of her eyes. The magic, the joy, and the satisfaction from this ritual completes her. Please give your attention to Ms. Lee's presentation, Sharing My Art Journey with You, Beautiful Belize City.
What inspires you and what keeps you motivated?
Everything. Like when I stay calm, I look around my surrounding, everything will inspire me. Stay motivated, keep on working. I do a lot of sketch, and I do a lot of mental work. I'm observing, I'm looking at things, see how I can do it, how I'm going to do it. I plan ahead. Everything I can see from the beginning to the end. Then I decide, well, this seems interesting, then I'm going to do it in action.
How do you define success as an artist?
How do I define success? I might say whenever I'm happy, because when I'm working, I'm happy, making improvement, and I'm pursuing my dream, what I want to do. I study and I work, it builds my personality, become the way I am today. And then I'm here in Belize, and I'm trying. I'm trying very hard because it's not easy right here. And I wanted to do a book, for instance. I did it. Let me tell you how it started. It all started from this one. Small sketch book. One Sunday morning, I woke up, then I come here. Then I make this. This is the original idea of the book. So the front cover didn't change much. It almost stayed the same. And then after this one, I started working on it. I work little by little. I choose the 21 urban sketch first. And then now this is the final. So I'm very proud. I'm very, very, very proud of this. Yeah, it's a milestone. But it's hard, I have to take it. It's very hard. I reach out to different people, almost like the palette color. I bring different material, including writers this time.
I essentially understood the type of work that you did was in finding beauty in simple things, things that we would overlook in our very own country, like Albert Street on a busy day. And I think that, for me, is what stands out in your art.
A lot of people telling me they're starting to feel what I feel. They're starting to see what I see. And I start to really appreciate even more what we have here. So then, since I gathered a lot of sketches, and I said, well, let's do a book. But I don't, the process is very painful, I have to tell you. I've never suffered this much.
It's achievable. Sometimes we have to wait at the right time, right moment, right people.
What role do you think artists have in society?
Well, there's two things. One is that artists are quite selfish. Whatever I do, I think about myself. I want to satisfy my hunger. I want to do whatever I want to do, like a little spoiled child. And then once for a while, we have some interaction with people.
For sketching from life. So use a sketchbook. We recycle. Come on here, then. Let's go back here.
How long did it take you to find your own style?
Ha ha ha, I have to laugh. Well, you don't find the style finds you. I've been working for a long time. I don't see style I do. I'm only doing what I'm doing. People might see, oh, this kind of style, that kind of style, they like this, they like that. But to me, they all the same. I keep on working, so what I'm doing, they develop, they evolve.
What motivates you to create?
I have this need. I maybe become a crazy person if I don't create.
Do you find it therapeutic when you're creating something?
Oh yes,
That's why you like to try out new creative mediums?
because I'm curious. I'm not like a little child. You need to be curious. And I never satisfied with whatever I do.
Wow, thank you so much, Yaoling, for that incredible presentation. I think I feel very zen while listening to you and watching how you navigate the world through art. And so I'm very excited to hear more about that. And I hope that our viewers also are enjoying it. And if you have any questions for Miss Yaoling Lee, please put it in your comment section below, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Next on this afternoon's agenda is Miss Nadimi VR. She will be presenting her research titled Belizean Filmmakers Talk, Caribbean Cinema and Film Production. Nadimi VR is a Belizean-grown history major who transferred to UCLA to receive her bachelor's in film and television. Nadimi currently resides in Los Angeles, pursuing freelance production, filmmaking, and production design, assistant directing, and producing, while also completing 2 capstone projects, her thesis film, Pobre Diabla, and creating a college-level cinema course called Caribbean Cinema. Nadimi hopes to combine her filmmaking knowledge and Caribbean studies background to make films in Belize and encourage other storytelling Belizeans to write Belizean films. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Nadimi VR's presentation, Belizean Filmmakers Talk Caribbean Cinema and Film Production.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nadimi VR, and I wanted to say thank you all for joining me on Belizean Filmmakers Talk Caribbean Cinema and Film Production under today's bigger umbrella of exploring Belize's diverse, sustainable orange economy for Heritage Education Network Belize's KULCHA Symposium 2024. I've been volunteering with them for 4 years, and as this year I have graduated from UCLA TFT Film School, I've been finding myself searching for other Belizean filmmakers as I navigate this postgraduate life, and also reflecting back on my journey from coming from Orange Rock Town, coming from a school of La Mocolata, RC School, Muffles College, St. John's Junior College, and University of Belize. All places of which have led me to here, of where I can now share the experiences with 5 other filmmakers, which are Feline Cayetano, Jocelyn Glenn, Samantha Aldana, Carlo Habet, and Andrea Habet. And Carlo Habet is the current film commissioner. Speaking about our journeys being filmmakers and also presenting a little bit on Caribbean cinema. Some honorable mentions, though, I do want to mention is Nigel Miguel, who is previous film commissioner, UC alumni, and is currently running the Belize International Film Festival, of which all of you should look out for very, very soon. It's coming out in like 2 weeks. And also Dale Stelly, an executive producer, director, writer, based in LA since 1998, known for Paradise 2023 and Sin City, A Dame to Kill, and who's worked with bigger studios and network such as Hulu and Zeus Network. And also David Smith, who does animation, and Emer King, who was the first Belize commissioner and who produced Dogs of War. I like the first one I did better. And coming from those places of La Mocolata, Muffled, and St. John's, and UB, I've found myself very lucky and privileged to be able to be a filmmaker currently in LA. And I just want to highlight other people who've gone through similar experience for other people who are interested in being not just content creators, but want to make films, that it is possible. And I really want this webinar to be a beginning of generating voices and conversation surrounding Belizean filmmakers and how that can contribute to the orange economy. But very, very briefly, I will touch up on Caribbean cinema. And Caribbean cinema has been going on for quite some time, and I've recently been able to put together a Caribbean cinema course outline, a part of my graduating BA program. And in there, I have found numerous films. However, the main point being that many of the characters come from economic one of the main characteristics is that many of these films come from post-colonial settings and have characters who are constantly struggling to navigate life economically. That's always a part of the plot. And no matter whether it be magical realism, it be about exploring LGBTQ communities, or simply just wanting to dance, as She Paradise is shown, a Trinidadian film. All the characters come from a place of economic struggle. And I have been reflecting on whether Belize can have bigger films than those that have been shown, such as Apocalypto. And as recent as K.U.L.C.H.A, a 2018 film on Netflix. With that in mind, however, a lot of these films, such as She Paradise, which I mentioned earlier, have been able to be successful in spaces such as the Dominican Republic, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago, because they have film festivals that are able to promote local filmmakers, and then are able to invite other investors to come down to acquire these films, a part of their streaming libraries, as of recent, due to the whole streaming platforms. So with that in mind, I thought with that recent development, that it'd be very, very, very important that Belize become a part of this. And with that in mind, also with the rise of social media, where we see also short films being made on iPhones and produced on Instagram, I thought this is a very good time for people to start coming together, especially as I've ran into different Belizean filmmakers, for us to gather as a community and talk about our journeys and show that it's possible. We're here and we're alive. And we are going to make films that everybody at home can relate to.
Let's go way back in time. We're going to go way back to the year, let's say 2003. I returned to Belize. When I returned, I lived with my grandfather and noticed, hey, he's getting up there. He's living alone, and they instilled in us this love for all things that elders are about, which is good food, lots of fun and educational stories. You get your discipline, you get stability and that connectivity to how things were. So intergenerational knowledge. I don't want to lose this. I want to always have something to hold on to from this. Now, I had been a fan of photography for the very same reason, holding on to everything in a tangible way. So at that time in 2003, I took a lot of pictures. Then in 2003, I was in college, I was in undergrad, I have a degree in English. So while pursuing that degree, part of the requirement was to complete an honors thesis. Already, when you think about an English degree, a lot of writing, and this was no different. So I said, you know what, in this case, I can show better than tell what the experience of Garifuna elders happens to be. I chose to look within my own family and videotape, record family members.
I think that like a lot of kids, I grew up really like fascinated by films, and I'll say movies because I mean when you're a kid, it's a movie. I guess it's a film when you become more mature. But I just loved this like idea that you could kind of go to this totally like immersive place and that you could see it. And I was never a really big reader for whatever reason. I don't know, I probably like ADHD or some shit like that. But I just always loved movies. I just would watch all kinds of movies. As a kid, I'd probably watch movies that were like way past my time. And I just loved like the storytelling. I think I just like I would internalize the techniques without realizing it. Like I would start to understand the concepts of like foreshadowing, things like that. Like visual cues.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I do all of them, as an artist. Film is my focus, which is a visual art, but I'm a painter too and a writer, and I think that the reason that film is my number one passion is the accessibility of it. It's much more shareable to get your story that you feel like emboldened to tell in the hands of a bigger audience. Maybe a book can do that, but if it's an oral story, it's just the people in that space. If it's a painting, it's just if it's a physical art show or something, it's just the people in the space get to experience that in the way it's like meant to be. And it's not to say any of them are greater, or have more impact than other, but it's more about the reach for me. And I think that, film in particular has this ability to reach an international audience.
That's where I would more so say that the short stories, and coming from a background of Garifuna, I would even say all Caribbean, all Belize, and all African folks, right? We are an oral tradition. We come from this oral tradition. There's always a story. There's always, what we call uraga. And these stories become more than what they are with each telling. And that is what I more brought to the screen than poetry. Afieni is the story of a middle-aged Garifuna woman in Hopkins and her experience rejecting Garifuna tradition and embracing evangelical Christianity, and what that looks like in real life for many Garifuna families. That's Garifuna families here in Belize, in Guatemala, in Honduras, perhaps in Nicaragua. I'm not sure if they have that aside. When it comes to the tension between religious beliefs that do not want us to practice our traditional spirituality. When it comes to ceremonies like the Dugu, it's intergenerational, and it is also not only a place for connecting with the ancestors, it's connecting with each other and learning and growing and healing together. When that is disconnected, you're basically losing a big aspect, not only of your culture, but also that familial connectivity. When I wrote the screenplay, it started off as a short story, and I put in some fun, magical realism elements. This also happens to be part of our tradition. Ancestors come to us in dreams often. Again, that's not unique to us as a people, but we definitely have such a strong respect for it.
Little Lang Wild is a narrative feature film that is set in Belize that I've been developing for many, many years. It's a really personal story that is about a young girl who's 13 named Carmen, who is obsessed with Mayan mythology and Belizean folklore, and she has a habit of telling her own stories too. And when she believes that a monster from a story that she's made up has come to life and is hunting them in their village, she has to prove that this time her story is true. And it's ultimately about female empowerment and trusting girls and women and giving a platform to those often unheard voices.
Like maybe 4. I think 4 is good enough.
Yes, I will try my best. So I would say always ask them about themselves. Because people love talking about themselves. The fact that I've been talking this long is insane. And it's just like a psychology thing. People, like, if you ask them, they will tell you more than you ask for. And try not to interrupt them. But also, I mean, if you're at a festival, for example, there's going to be a lot of people there. And you know, maybe you're talking to somebody, you don't know who they are, or maybe you do know who they are, whatever. And somebody interrupts you, or you know, just to go talk to them because they're like, hey, I haven't seen this person in so long, and you're like standing there like a third wheel. That you can stand around, sure, but you can actively or proactively stand around and be like, well, let me go talk to somebody else. But before I go talk to somebody else, we all have phones, give them your phone and open up the contacts app. And just as they're talking to this other person, have them put in their name, their phone number, and their email so that you can reach them personally. Because again, it's chaotic at this event. There's so many people talking, but once you have their contact, you can reach out to them afterwards and try to set up something less chaotic, one-on-one, where you can get to know each other on a human level. So doing that's really important. Also, take a moment for yourself to really just calculate, you know, how many people you've talked to. I would try to, if you're early in the networking stages that you don't know what to do, try to just talk to 10 people that you've never met before, get their contact, and what have you. And then when you're done with that, when you're done with the event and all is said and done, reach out to 10 of the people that you reached out to. I'm hoping that you're an overachiever and you reached out to more than 10 people, because statistically, out of 10 people that you'll reach out to, 5 will respond favorably, generally, on average, and then 1 or 2 will actually amount to something.
So what do you think are
Yeah.
key skills to networking to, like, I guess, help
Okay.
foster that community building?
That's a good question. I think so. I'm a business student. At least that's my degree. I guess I've kind of done it all. But one of the most important lessons I learned in my very first class, I think it was small business management. And the teacher, he was actually an entrepreneur, and so he was running his own business, and it was like a pretty decent sized business too. It wasn't, you know, it's like, you know, in America, this is like a proper business in every way. So I was happy that we were taught by pros, right? These are real business people, and they gave their time otherwise to be professors. You know, usually they're later in their life, so they're accomplished. And he said, you know, you're only as good as the people that you know. Your network is so important. And then he says, oh, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, I don't have a network. How do I get one? And then he's like, you already have a network. He's like, imagine your parents' friends. Imagine, like, you know, your friends, imagine like their parents. Imagine your friends of them. You know, imagine the teachers that you went to school with, like people that they know. You know, imagine all these people who you already have interacted with in your life. That's already a network. So you go and leverage that. And I was like, wow, I have a network. He's right. And I have a huge network. I mean, I'm not typical, but I had a huge network from way back then. And I was like, wow, I'm just like essentially like letting these things go to waste. So I think for me, I think the first thing would be to understand what a network is. It's not some fancy, idea. You're not supposed to just always be going to mixers and all these things. A great network. I mean, yes, those are great practices. And that will be my second point. But the first point is that you have one, right? People that you know, that's a network.
By the time, you know, somebody gets pregnant, somebody's child gets sick, all these other things, and life being life, this 6-month program, development program, of that, maybe 3 to 5 will complete the program and have good stories. And these good stories, the niche Belize Film Commission could assist to bring forward on screen. Towards the end of that 6-month period, the Commonwealth Foundation put out a call for Caribbean shorts, Caribbean films. And these Caribbean shorts, they would support, let's say, about 6 of 10 films in a way that the filmmakers, so they opened the door and said, okay, we'll have 10 filmmakers go to, let's say, I forgot which island it was. Let's call it Barbados. You know, you'd have these 10 filmmakers go to Barbados for about 3 weeks in order to have intense training in filmmaking to prepare them to make their films. And of that, maybe about 6 or so, 4 to 6 of them would receive £8,000 of development funds. Here came COVID, right? we were approved, those of us, we applied, those who, however many of us were selected. And from that selection, we were just kind of waiting, trying to find out as 2020 happened, when will we go to Barbados for these 3 weeks? Eventually, we all realized and accepted, hey, there will be no in-person thing going on in 2020, and very likely not in 2021. So the plan shifted, and they said, okay, we will not bring you in for these 3 weeks, but we will have online development courses and opportunities for you.
Well done, Nadimi. Thank you so very much for that presentation. And I saw some familiar faces in your interviews. And so I believe that we are going to be hearing from some of them in our Q&A session this afternoon. I would now like to welcome our presenters to the stream so that they can have the conversation with our viewers this afternoon. Thank you all so much, and congratulations on a well done presentation, everyone. I must commend you. I know that stitching these presentations together is not easy. And I also know that, for example, Ms. Nadime's presentation was quite lengthy, and it was a very important conversation to have. But I just also want to remind our viewers that all of these presentations will be available on our Heritage Education Network Belize YouTube page for reviewing. If you all decided you wanted to get more information, the contact details of our presenters will also be listed in the link in all of those videos as well. We love to be connectors of academics, community members alike. And so I know that KULCHA is one of those ways where presenters meet, researchers meet, they dialogue, and they exchange information and create new presentations and research. So I'm always proud to be a part of that connected part of this symposium. I noticed that we don't have many questions in the chat as yet, but I would like to encourage our viewers to please ask your questions. Our presenters are here. They work really hard on this research. But I do have a question for our first presenters, Dr. Fairweather and Dr. Jason. So in terms of the way that you all constructed this particular topic, in terms of trying to educate the diaspora about Africanness. That's my term, Africanness in the United States. Let's talk about how you all explored the different avenues between the US, the Caribbean, parts of Latin America, and countries in Africa, if you can.
Sure. Thank you for having us. I think it all started from really just an inquiry as members of the African diaspora. I myself always wonder, like, say, for example, how do Ghanaians learn about us? Because I know in school we don't learn about the Ghanaians. We learn that the rhetoric in school book says they took slaves from Africa, but we know they took people from Africa and enslaved them. But that's really the extent. We don't really get to know Ghana. We get to know the Gold Coast. We get to know later Accra, but again, we don't get to know the people of Ghana. And I think I can speak for Dr. Fairweather when I say this, that I think our research stems from those questions, like this burning desire to want to know about our stories and how they intersect. But in putting together our presentation, we really just laid out a framework over a series of meetings and figured out what was most important about that framework and developed a curriculum, and we'll continue to develop a curriculum. but I'll yield to Dr. Fairweather.
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? My internet was kind of breaking up a little bit. What did you?
Apologies. So I was trying to find out how you all were able to create the foundations of your presentation by perhaps exploring the way the African diaspora in the Caribbean, Latin America, and countries in Africa does perceive Africanness in the United States.
Well, the foundation definitely stems from Jason and I's, both of our interests in education and anthropology. We are always concerned with how people of African descent or any African diaspora are portrayed in the curriculum, and how sometimes there seems and appears to be divisiveness even within the community as well. So we were looking at different frameworks, art, science, different ways to bring some type of understanding even within the community. And that's where it comes from, cross-cultural border crossing, because there has to be some type of understanding within. So then that way we're on a united front. So when we start talking about issues on a broader scale, there'll be much more understanding. Because really we're concerned with reparations and reparatory justice. And I'll just say that as an example. And I know in the United States is such a division. Oh, only foundational Black Americans deserve it. But from Jason and I's perspective, just using this as an example, it's bigger than that. It's not only foundational Black Americans. It's actually, if you look at it, a lot of different communities in the African diaspora have been affected. Not to say others have not, but our focus is definitely on the African diaspora. So we're just trying to show how we are more united than divided within that regard.
I think I really wanted to understand that part, because the concept of, for example, reparations, very different in the Caribbean. And I think that for a lot of African descent Belizeans that do venture into the United States, the concept of Africanness and Blackness is very much different from the way we perceive it in the Caribbean and in Latin America as well. And I think that the strength of understanding cultural heritage, that's kind of how we are able to cling to that concept of Africa and African descent. Because if I go into the United States right now, I am labeled Latina, I am labeled Puerto Rican or Mexico or whatever, and I'm half Black. But I can't say that in the United States and not have people look at me like, but not really. And I think the diaspora in our parts of the world perceive that very differently than those in the United States. And I was trying to understand how you all came up with that concept, but it's quite interesting, and I'm hoping that you all can touch more on that aspect.
And can I just say one thing? Thank you for saying that as an example, using your own experience and how you would be labeled or what box you would have to check if you came to the US. That's exactly why Jason and I are hosting this focus group, because we want to hear more about these experiences and see how we can put it together and teach it in a scientific and artistic way, because that's the best way to have the community meet with the academy. That's the best way to showcase that knowledge. So please feel free to join our focus group. I don't have the QR code, but we'll post it in the comment section. Thank you.
Yes, please. Yes, if you have any other information that you'd like to share with our viewers, please post it in the Facebook or the YouTube comment section. I do see, though, that we have a question for Ms. Yao-Ling Lee. And Ms. Yao-Ling, this question is coming from Cynthia Robin. And she is wondering what you will be doing next now that the Belize City Urban Sketchbook is complete.
Do you hear me? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of things. After the book, or even during the book, I started working with the our chief librarian, Miss Luciola. So I was doing some book reading and workshop at different libraries. The last one was Hopkins.
No, Hawking was before that. And I do 3 already. The last one was Santa Elena's library. So, and then I've been doing a also workshop with hosting by Resource. I did 2 already with Sleeping Giant and Jaguar Reef, and I have about 2 to 3 to 4 upcoming resort workshop as well. So yeah, down to Placencia, Turtle Inn, and Naya. I just finished a flyer for Naya last night, and I'm thinking about traveling to somewhere, but because the rain, the weather is not very good, so it really affect my trip. So yeah, a lot of things, but I think ultimately I have to keep on working, mean that keep on painting. This morning, you see my outfit right now. I was painting by the seaside this morning, and then not because we have a seminar today, but because it rained also right before I finished my painting, so I have to rush back. So yeah, I'm like restless. I can't say what, but I'm just restless. Yes, yeah.
I don't know if I think that your mind is always moving. Anybody that knows Yao Ling, she doesn't stop no matter, even if you're talking to her, she's still like looking what else she can do and what else she can paint, and it's quite inspiring. What I wanted to ask in terms of your urban workshops, because that was one of the ways that you were able to promote this book. And you did so quite extensively. You had a tour to kind of just launch it in a sort of soft way. Are you going to be doing any more of these workshops in schools?
Yes, I think let's go back to earlier. I applied for a grant, Belize Culture Fund, right? So by applying, I got a grant. So I was able to do 6, well, I think five or 6, I can't remember. So I did a workshop, urban sketching workshop, combined with my book launch. Everything all together, because I think one complement each other, helping each other, and I was working with niche. By using their resource to promote my work as well. So it's a whole package. Whatever I do, I think about bigger image, bigger idea, not only focus on one. So the book is actually I maybe it's a joke, but I say I accidentally self-publish a book. It sounds funny, but it's a lot of work. It's really a lot of work, and I think I'm using this book to build a bridge for people to reach out to my work, because I'm not a writer. I have to say, yeah, I wrote a book. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I have 21 Belizean writer, but I'm the main one who wrote a book. But I still have to focus on I'm someone who paint. I do sculptures, I do paintings. So ultimately, I think let's go back to the whole beginning. The reason why this book is I desperately, how to say that, I want to communicate with people. See, usually we don't get to talk like this, and when I do painting, people see painting only. So I think it's something really new that and I think I reached partially my goal. So the mission continues, I might have to say. And yes, for the school, there are many things I want to do, but I have to go step by step, right? The reason why I'm working on those workshop with Resolve, because I can get paid. It's important. I have to, self-sustain, right? I'm not doing cherish, I need money to buy gasoline, buy food, everything supply. So by working with them, I try to do a library visit as well. When I'm doing library visit, I do book reading, and also I do a workshop with them, 1 to 2 hours. So they don't pay me, but I feel more relaxed. When I'm making some money, then I can also contribute some.
No, I really appreciate that you brought that up, Yaling, because one of the things that we do talk about this particular theme, and one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about the orange economy is because of this exactly that you said. A lot of the times people want artists to do the charity work. They want the artist to come in. They want the artist to create all of these extravagant pieces and not pay them their worth. So I am really happy that you did talk about that. And this is one of the reasons why we've been talking about boosting our orange economy in Belize, because we have so many talented people like Yao-Ling that we feel have contributed so much to this economy, and we continue to advocate for artisans to get paid properly. But I understand that one of our presenters will have to leave shortly, and so I did get a couple of questions directed to my private chat here. And if Dr. Jason or Dr. Dania could expand on these questions, that would be great. So can you speak to the importance of anthropology and the anthropological lenses in dismantling some of the narratives that you provided in your presentation, giving the perceptions towards anthropology and anthropologists?
Sure. Did you want to tackle that, Dr. Fairweather, or should I?
Go ahead, go first. I'll add on. Go ahead.
Okay. So anthropology gets its birth in colonization. You have wealthy white men and some women venturing out into spaces like the continent of Africa, South America, and others, and they're encountering these exotic people. And so it started from a lens of people wanting to sort of learn about these people that were so different from them. Towards the 1920s, during the Harlem Renaissance, you have artists like Zora Neale Hurston, who's an anthropologist, who starts to study folklore. And folklore is an African American, not all folklore, but particularly she studied folklore in America, and how that connected to folklore elsewhere in the world. And so, not after, she wasn't the first, but she definitely was one of the more well-known Black anthropologists who was doing research on us as a people. And so for me, our research starts inside from us, with questions that we have about us and how can we as social scientists better understand our brothers and sisters globally, while by extension understanding who we are too, as people. And so I don't know, Dania, you want to add on to that?
Sure. And I just want to also say that anthropology has, as you said, Jason, been traditionally wealthy Western males, white males. But there have been some other voices within the African diaspora who had tried to step into anthropology and share these other narratives, such as Antonar Fairmen, who was a Haitian anthropologist in the early 20th century. We don't know about him because his voice was silenced and he was exiled to St. Thomas. But what we did uncover through the translations of his writings was that he contributed a significant amount of wisdom and knowledge in terms of how we should scientifically approach the understanding of the African diaspora and the contributions of Black people to the global world. So what we would like to do, Jason and I, and anyone else who wants to join the movement, is bring these voices who've been traditionally, historically marginalized and silenced in anthropology. We would like to bring those voices forward and say, listen, we were already supposed to be united as a diaspora. Let's approach it scientifically so we can help dismantle these colonial tropes that have been put on us.
And if I can add one more caveat to that. And so though not an anthropologist, one of the well-known sociologists of our time, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, had this theme of dual consciousness, where you have an African self and a Western self, right? And so we think about, I often think about, how do my brothers say in England, and my sisters in England, how do they navigate being English or being British, in the way that I navigate being American? Because America never lets me forget that I'm different. And so I would imagine that London has a similar history with its residents of color, so I'm interested in the intersection of those experiences as well, from both an anthropological, sociological, but also just from a person-to-person perspective.
please, if you have the QR code and you would like to send it in the Facebook or the YouTube, or send it to us, and we can definitely, send that out, because we did conduct something that's called the Caribbean Research Methodologies here in Belize a couple of months ago. Yeah, it was quite a week-long stellar conference with many professors and academics within the Caribbean, New Zealand, England, the United States. And I believe that work like this would be very instrumental to their movement, because they were talking about their experiences of being Black and living in the United States versus being Black and living in the Caribbean. So it would be quite good for us to share that dialogue, to share that information. So thank you both so much. Our next question is for Ms. Nadime VR, and it also comes from Cynthia Robin, and she would like to know, what are your recommendations for other young filmmakers?
I guess I'm wondering, like, recommendations as in like next steps, or as in movies, or but if it's like in career terms, I think just starting to write whatever comes to your mind. Like I only got accepted to the film school at UCLA because I started writing a novel when I was 13, and I realized very early that I really like storytelling, and doing a lot of cultural work, as I have in the past, trying to be a part of Cultural Symposium from like the very beginning, and also I worked at a museum, having a history background as well, because Miss April was my teacher at the University of Belize right before I went to UCLA. Those have all given me has given me storytelling foundations that I now apply whenever I write. And that's what I would say, like, on recommendations, like, just start writing, because you never know where that can, like, take you. One thing I do want to point out, though, I know it looks cut short because all the presenters talked a really long time, so I'm going to make a longer version of this because they have some really good points, especially on the orange economy. Jocelyn, who spoke a bit about networking tips, she's a very good producer, Belizean American producer in LA, and she gave really good tips on like how local businesses can support video content creators in creating narratives and having product placement within their film, so that it becomes a symbiotic relationship between local businesses and cultures. And as well, like she pointed out, that Belize, shooting in Belize is like a product placement of itself for Belize, and like hiring and boosting up in it a tourism like factor by showing it on like a local perspective stories. And Feline also highlighted that until we start to pay our artists correctly, we won't really know how to value our identity and our cultures. So boosting this orange economy is super crucial to not just the preservation of culture, but also the boosting of like sustainability on and just seeing our identities, a preservation of identity. So yeah.
Thanks, Nadime. And I also note that you have Miss Feline Cayetano with you on this Q&A session. She was one of your interviewees, and we all know Feline. She is no stranger to the film industry in Belize. So I think I'm going to toss that question to you as well, Feline, just so that you could give your input on recommendations for other young filmmakers, Belizeans. And it's not an easy feat to dive into any type of art and filmmaking industry, especially in Belize, where your compensation might not be the best. So what do you have to inspire our young persons that want to get into this particular industry?
Well, I must first give a quick hail as well to Yao Ling, because I'm also one of the 21 writers in beautiful Belize City. So this brings the recommendation: continuously innovate, elevate, learn. And don't be afraid to send your work out wherever there's a window or a door available. And of course, you have to keep your eyes open for those opportunities. The networking piece is very important because a few years ago, a door opened for me. And when the time came that another door opened, I was able to go back and say, can you please provide me with a recommendation? And they were able to. Once that recommendation came, boom, more opportunities came. So make yourself visible, make yourself be a learning machine so you can magnetize these opportunities when they come. Some things, yes, will be paid, some things will not. Anyone and all must learn as well how to negotiate. Those are my recommendations.
No, very true. You're absolutely right. And we have another question here for ISU and Nadime. What strategies do you think Belize could adapt to attract more international film productions and enhance local talent development?
So interestingly enough, this is where I was like, this was kind of hard to edit into the video. Of my findings from that Trinidad and Tobago especially make a film festival, the International Film Festival, for them to promote local stories to be acquired by like these streaming services, so that their filmmakers actually see some sort of like compensation and contract for their stories to be on these streaming platforms. And especially right now that they're literally going to the film festivals to find more filmmakers they're willing to be a part of this. And another thing as well is that Carlo Habet was sharing with me alongside Samantha that they're going to work on creating workshops for filmmakers in Belize to start knowing knowing how to do film productions, using the tools that you have, from using the iPhone that you have to knowing like the proper workflow, to knowing all of those ways of casting and story writing. That is what they're working on currently. So very much be on the lookout. And yeah, my recommendations is mainly just to start as much as you can. And I know Suzette is the one doing the Belize Film Festival this year, and I believe it's going to be in 2 weeks. So, if you make a short film, you can submit it next year, and they become a part of this greater way of showcasing your work. And right now, a lot of films are being done on iPhones, and with the influx of social media, you can even post it there. So that's my tidbit on that.
Wonderful. And Feline?
Oh, yes, the Belize International Film Festival is one way. The thing that I have a mixed reaction about is having people come and use Belize just as the location. Yes, come use us as the location, but also, make it an opportunity as well for the local film industry to get some learning, to get some training, to get some development there. That is the relationship that has to be more established. Yes, many films have come into Belize. There have been also a lot of an importation of filmmakers from elsewhere, but more so what I've seen steadily is that Belizean film crew, people who have those skills, are dispatched to the news, are dispatched to documentaries. They're dispatched in those areas where they know that there's a steady paycheck. So we don't get enough creative narrative fiction stories coming out from us organically. And that's the part that I say, let's make more of that happen.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that Belize and Belizeans, we love when our country is being labeled internationally. We love when um, it's out there in a particular film or a movie, but I think that I kind of stopped loving that when I saw, I believe it was, I don't know if it's NCIS. It was one of those American shows that went across the borders, and they did an entire episode on Belize, and was clearly not Belize, because I know San Pedro don't have mountains. And I know that our Creole is not patois. And I know that whatever serial killer person was trying to utilize Maya ritual was not really a Maya ritual. So all of that in my head about the way certain persons just, I think, over dramatize Belize and Belizean culture, and it is a form of exploitation. And I feel like the more and more we have these discussions, the more we can strengthen perhaps copywriting and IP in Belize, because that's also something that I know we struggle with in terms of film production here. But it is already 2:32. And so I would like to say thank you all to our presenters so much for coming in, being a first part of our afternoon session for our Culture Symposium. I'd also like to remind our viewers that all of our presenters' presentations will be available on the Heritage Education Network YouTube page for viewing afterwards. If there is some information that you wanted to get, you can always go back and check out our YouTube page. But we are going to take a 15-minute coffee break, a 10-minute to 15-minute coffee break, and we'll be back with our final session for this afternoon. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Culture Symposium.
Thank you, April.
Thank you.
you.
And welcome back from the coffee break. We hope that you are all able to refresh yourselves and prepare for more exciting presentations. A gentle reminder to our audience that we will have live questions and answer segments with the presenters at the end of each of the sessions. So please ask your questions in the comment sections on Facebook and on YouTube. As Dr. Villarreal beautifully worded yesterday, our KULCHA Symposium is a volunteer-led event. The symposium is not made possible by dollars or grants, but through our volunteers' passion and love for Belize. We also take this time to remind anyone who appreciates the work it takes to put together this symposium to please consider donating so that we can make more events like this possible. HENBI is a growing organization, and we always welcome volunteers. We always welcome bright new ideas. And of course, you can find donation links on our website at www.heritagebelize.org. We are excited to have with us for our final session and our final day of the KULCHA Symposium two wonderful presentations that touch on how spirituality, archaeology, and history in Belize lay the foundations for the growth of our orange economy. Our first presentation is a collaboration among Dr. Cynthia Robin, Ms. Adela Peterson, and Andy Chook. The title of this presentation is Spirituality and Archaeology, Opening Creative Discussions about Maya Heritage and Creative or Orange Economies. Cynthia Robin is an archaeologist professor and chair of the Department of Anthropology at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, USA. She has worked as an archaeologist in Belize since 1986. Between 1990 and 1992, she had the privilege of working for 2 years in the Belize Institute of Archaeology in Belmopan as a Peace Corps volunteer. She is currently working in the Corozal district, where she directs the Aventura Archaeology Project as an archaeological research project that was born out of conservation with cultural heritage stakeholders in Belize. Ms. Adela Peterson is the founder and president of the To'one Masewalon NGO, which is a language revival and catered to safeguarding Yucatec Maya heritage in Belize organization. And Mr. Andy Chook is a member of the Northern Yucatec Maya Association. All collaborations have brought this presentation to light. So without further ado, let's get into spirituality and archaeology, opening creative discussions about Maya heritage and creative or orange economies.
Spirituality and archaeology, opening creative discussions about Maya heritage and creative orange economies by Adela Peterson Vallejos, Annie Chook, and Cynthia Robin. On July 31, 2023, the To'one Masewalon NPO created an extraordinary experience when they presented the spirituality of their ancestors through a performance of the ritual of the cardinal points at the ancient Maya city of Aventura, where their ancestors once lived.
Lakim, si chak bakam, yetel yum balam. Si ek bakam, yetel yum balam. Shaman, si sak bakam, yetel yum balam.
Hello, my name is Adela Peterson Vallejos de Mo, and today I am going to share with you a very unique experience we had within our NPO group, and we are calling it the Adventura Excursion. So we have our nonprofit organization. Its name is called Tone Mase Walon, meaning we are Maya, and our group has been established since 2017. And the intention of our group is to preserve all aspects of the Yucatec Maya culture in northern Belize, so that incorporates the language, the spirituality, the attire, the foods, music, folklore, and anything else that pertains to culture. We are located in the beautiful town of Corozal in Belize. And what's important about our town is that it's called the Gateway to Ancient Chactamal. So we have 3 Maya temples in the vicinity of Corozal town, and one of them is the Temple of Chactamal. We also have the Cerros Maya temple, and it's across the bay from Corozal. We have Adventura, which is on the outskirts of a village called San Joaquin. And this is where Dr. Cynthia Robin has been doing her work, studying the life of the Maya there. So these 3 temples, we call them the sister temples. The intention for the Adventura excursion was to showcase the Maya spirituality by having a ritual there, and that ritual was to ask permission of the guardians of the area, and also to give gratitude for all that the knowledge that we are excavating from that site. And I know that Mr. Andy Chook will talk a little bit more about that specific area. But the area that I want to highlight is the opportunity that was given to our group on that day. So we had the youth and their parents and also some other adults there, that we all came out to learn about the work that Dr. Robin has been doing at Adventura. So, and for the ritual, I wanted to make sure that the children had a hands-on part in the ritual, which is exactly what happened, because this is a way for us to pass on that information in the area of spirituality to these children who are direct descendants of the Maya people of northern Belize. We had the opportunity for the children to learn the importance of the archaeological work and how to go about it in a very professional manner, and to get as much of the real information as possible. So they had a wonderful time just becoming little archaeologists for the day. So here they're learning about the importance of gridding and following the grids, and the importance of brushing and locating different treasures. But then they also got to do some hands-on learning with the modern technology. So each child got to fly the drone and to learn how this is used in modern day archaeology. And that was wonderful to watch them do that, get a good handle of how to manage the drone. And we also had an opportunity to present the whole experience live to the Corozal community. That was super exciting, as we learned what was being explained to us in the various stations. So the entire Corozal community were learning at the same time. And the staff was really wonderful in explaining everything and actually teaching us how to be archaeologists for one day. And these are our youth sieving through the different soils to locate the various treasures. This is our team that went out for the day, and we had a wonderful, wonderful time. And it was an opportunity to learn, to create memories, and I'm quite sure that on that day we also may have created some future archaeologists for Belize.
Malopkin atitula K.U.L.C.H.A. Amica by Andy Chuk. Good morning to everyone. My name is Andy Chuk. Today I will be talking about the ritual that was done at the Maya site of Aventura. So despite 500 years of European influence, the Yucatec Maya, also known as Maya Winik or Maya Masawal, continue to preserve many aspects of their Maya spirituality. One of them is the K.U.L.C.H.A, also known as K.U.L.C.H.A. The K.U.L.C.H.A would be roughly translated as Mayan deities or Mayan gods. The Maya know or believe that the K.U.L.C.H.A are linked to every aspect of the life of the Maya, from creation, childbirth, growing up, doing business, getting old, dying, the wind, the sun, the moon, the rain, etc. The Maya believe that the Great Spirit, which in Maya we know it as Yumku, left certain entities to protect certain areas. So before entering the bush, a cave, a Maya site, the Maya believe that it's very important to ask permission. So in this ritual, what was done is invoking the cardinal points. There are 5 of them. It is believed that on each cardinal point there is a Yum Balam. The Yum Balam, also known as Nukushtat, they are believed to have been created before humanity. And they were created to keep the balance between humanity and nature. They are the guardians of the forest, the guardians of the villages, and guardians of people. So before entering the bush or a Maya site, what we did was we invoked them, we asked for their permission and their protection. The Yumbalam, their guardian spirits, they are believed to be in the cardinal points, 4 of them and a 5th one in the middle. They are believed that they will protect us from bad energies, bad spirits, protect us of animals that can harm us, which would include snakes, spiders, jaguar, or even people with bad intentions. So we offered our prayers, and the shell was blown to awaken them, and so they can know our presence, so they can know that we are there and we are asking their protection. There are other entities that we also ask. One was Yumchak, the Lord of Rain, Yumik, the Lord of Wind, and the Bakabs. The Bakabs are 4 of them that are the ones that hold the sky according to the books of Chilam Balam. Each cardinal point have a specific color. The east being red, the west being black, north being white, south being yellow, and the center being green. Green representing the K.U.L.C.H.A, the tree of life, the Saba. So thank you very much. This is my presentation on the ritual Hach Yumbotik Tesh.
Greetings. I am Cynthia Robin. I am a professor of anthropology and chair of the Department of Anthropology at Northwestern University. I direct the Aventura Archaeology Project. It has truly been an honor for us to collaborate with the Tone Masewalon NPO. The ritual of the cardinal points took place in front of an ancestral Maya house at the city of Aventura. We were excavating the archaeological remains of a pole and thatch building that was inhabited by a Maya family who lived at Aventura about 1,400 to 1,000 years ago. All that remains of the pole and thatch house today is its stone foundation, because organic materials such as the pole and thatch itself will not survive this amount of time. The family stored many of their possessions in an underground storage chamber called a chultun. While at home, they enjoyed music, which we know from the fragment of a flute found at the house. They considered their home to be sacred and buried ceramic vessels as offerings below the floors of their home. Spirituality and music were important parts of daily life at Aventura. The 2023 ceremony was a portal linking the past, present, and future for all who participated in and observed the sacred rite and archaeological excavations. And now it is a portal for you. We invite you to reflect upon the thousands of years of sacred rites that the Maya have performed at Aventura, of which the 2023 ceremony is but the most recent. The ceremony opened conversations between ritual specialists, Belizean and foreign archaeologists, youth and family to share and learn from one another in this unique way. As Adela discussed, the ceremony initiated a youth archaeological fieldwork experience at Aventura. Across the summer, over 100 Belizean youth from northern Belize were able to participate in and learn archaeological skills at Aventura, such as excavation, screening, artifact analysis, and drone photography. These young future archaeologists inspire us to contemplate what the creative orange economy holds for the future of Belize. We dedicate this presentation to Wilfredo Willie Novello, great knowledge keeper of the Maya world, who passed before this presentation was made. We learned so much from you. Thank you, Yumbotik, to the 2024 KULCHA Symposium organizers, the Tone Masewalon and Aventura Archaeology Project groups, conch player Herminio Novello, videographer Audomaro Tzul, and all.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Adela, Andy, and Dr. Cynthia. It's a very vital role. I don't think we really think about how spirituality does shape the way that we think about Belize's orange economy. And so I'm curious to see what some of the questions from our viewers will look like. The vital role of Indigenous history in shaping the orange economy by Mito Paz and the Chuk and Beth Morgan. It's going to be an exciting presentation. We have these three collaborators that are going to be discussing not just history within the orange economy, but also including ecotourism, the environment, and much more. We are going to be discussing human rights and so forth within this presentation. So without further ado, the vital role of Indigenous history in shaping the orange economy.
I want to express my sincere gratitude to the KULCHA team for welcoming the Eco Museum into the fold. This project has been a collaborative effort by many people who are passionate about preserving our indigenous heritage. I am especially grateful to Andy Chuck and Maya Masawal for his inspiring quotes and Beth Morgan for her valuable academic insight. I also thank the United Nations for providing the statistical information on this presentation. The Eco Museum began when a group of people share a vision of preserving our cultural heritage. Together, we acquired a piece of land and created exhibits showcasing the arts, culture, traditions, and practices of the Maya, Mestizo, and Bayman people. Our goal is to protect both the land and our ancestors' legacy. The Eco Museums offer visitors a unique and educational experience where they can learn about the Maya people's way of life, their food, celebrations, worships, and interaction with each other and the land. We hope that by visiting the museum, future generations will learn from our shared past and discover the wisdom of our ancestors.
KULCHA stands for Keeping Up with Language, Culture, Heritage, and the Arts. So, why is the culture of our Indigenous ancestors important in the here and now? Why should we fight to prevent the language, culture, heritage, archaeology, anthropology, and arts of ancient tribes from slipping into extinction? And how does any of this relate to the orange economy?
During this journey, it became glaringly apparent that we had tapped into much more than we had initially anticipated. By conserving our past, we saw that we were also helping to unify communities, encourage deeper understanding and tolerance of each other, and learning lessons from our elders about innovative solutions for a more sustainable way of life. This brings us to the heart of tonight's discussion, the importance of keeping Indigenous history alive and how it impacts on the orange economy. The creative economy, also known as the orange economy, is an evolving concept based on the contribution and potential of creative assets to drive economic growth and development. It embraces economic, cultural, and social aspects, integrating with technology, intellectual property, and tourism objectives. With this in mind, this year's overall theme aims to look at the creative economies of the past, present, and future to ensure a sustainable future.
There are about 476 million indigenous people living in 90 countries around the world. Even though they make up a small part of the world's population, they speak a huge number of the world's 7,000 languages. This shows how diverse and rich their cultures are. We are now in a special time known as the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, when the United Nations is focusing on protecting indigenous languages. Languages are important because they show us how different people see the world. They help us understand our culture, memories, and values. They are a big part of who we are. Sadly, many languages are going extinct. Indigenous people speak most of these endangered languages. This is because of things like colonization, globalization, taking away their land and not teaching the language to younger people. Indigenous language aren't just a way to communicate. They are central to who indigenous people are and how they see the world. They also hold important knowledge about nature and the environment. So when an indigenous language is lost, we lose a part of their culture forever.
The regression of Indigenous languages also diminishes the possibility of Indigenous knowledge contributing to sustainable development. In this context, it is particularly important to promote the inclusion of Indigenous knowledge in global climate science and related policy processes. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples establishes a universal framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of Indigenous peoples worldwide. It recognises the right to languages as an inherent right of Indigenous peoples. The status quo is indeed grave. There are only 4,000 surviving Indigenous languages spoken by a mere 6% of the total world population, Yet, indigenous traditions have served as a dependable means of acquiring knowledge transmitted across generations. This knowledge includes herbal medicine, food processing, and community practices that move civilizations from one stage to another. Further to this, I want to highlight the critical and heartbreaking issues that have continued to affect indigenous peoples around the world for centuries. The systematic erasure of languages and cultures through ethnic cleansing and cultural genocide. Throughout history, we have witnessed the devastating effects of these practices, with indigenous communities often bearing the brunt of these atrocities. This is powerfully illustrated in the following personal testimonials of the Yucatec people in Belize, whose language and culture have been systematically suppressed. The loss of the Yucatec language is a poignant example of cultural genocide. Discrimination and an oppressive educational system have played significant roles in this tragic decline. In Belize, schools have historically neglected to teach children how to speak, read, or write in Maya, effectively severing the transmission of cultural heritage from one generation to the next. Consider the words of a Maya elder. It is certainly true that the mayors of the northern Belize were forced to adapt to circumstances imposed upon them by the dominant Anglo-Saxon elite. This quote encapsulates the pressures faced by the Maya people, who were compelled to abandon their language and customs to conform to the expectations of a ruling class that viewed their culture as inferior.
Maya tongue, also known as Yucatec Maya, and is commonly known by its speakers as simply Maya, is one of the languages spoken in Belize, one of the indigenous languages that was once the lingua franca in northern Belize, but due to many factors, it has lost its speakers. Factors like discrimination and the educational system that continues to be rooted in colonialism. These are some of the testimonies of all Mayeros on why they were not able to continue the language.
In her published academic paper in the Oxford University Press, Danielle Conversi further draws our attention to the practice of cultural homogenization. Cultural homogenization, ethnic cleansing, and genocide can be seen as a part of a continuum. Throughout the modern era, states have forced their citizens to conform to common standards and cultural patterns. The goal has often been to seek congruence between ethnic and political boundaries, that is, to forge cohesive, unified communities of citizens under governmental control. Cultural homogenization is defined here as a state-led policy aimed at cultural standardization and the overlap between state and culture. As the goal is frequently to impose the culture of dominant elites on the rest of the citizenry, it consists basically of a top-down process where the state seeks to nationalize the masses. In her published book and Oxford University Press article, Elsa Novick discusses the concept of cultural genocide from an international law perspective. Cultural genocide is the systematic destruction of traditions, values, language, and other elements that make one group of people distinct from another. Cultural genocide remains a recurrent topic, appearing not only in the form of wide-ranging claims about the commission of discussions before the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, and also have the drafting of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. These discussions have, however, displayed the lack of a uniform understanding of the concept of cultural genocide, and thus of the role that international law is expected to fulfill in this regard. The concept of cultural genocide, an international law perspective, details how international law has approached the core idea underlying the concept of cultural genocide, and how this framework can be strengthened and fostered. It traces developments from the early conceptualization of cultural genocide to the contemporary question of its reparation. Through this journey, the book discusses the evolution of various branches of international law in relation to both cultural protection and the cultural destruction in light of a number of legal cases in which either the concept of cultural genocide or the idea of cultural destruction has been discussed. Such cases include the destruction of cultural and religious heritage in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the forced removals of Aboriginal children in Australia and Canada, and the case law of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights in relation to indigenous and tribal groups' cultural destruction. We must recognise and address the ongoing impact of ethnic cleansing and cultural genocide on indigenous peoples. The preservation and revitalisation of indigenous languages and cultures are not just acts of cultural preservation, but vital steps towards justice and reconciliation. Let us commit ourselves to supporting indigenous communities in reclaiming their heritage, honouring their histories, and ensuring that their languages and cultures thrive for generations to come. Anthropology seeks to define what holds a society together, what makes it function the way it does, how the society has adapted to the environment, the main modes of communication within the society, and how the people's past has shaped their culture. Anthropologists like Mead, Boas, and Malowinski devoted their work to combating racism, promoting cultural tolerance, and instilling the idea of cultural revitalization into the discipline of anthropology. Anthropologists play a vital role in understanding culture and society, exploring topics such as language, religion, family, social organization, economics, and art. Their contributions help us recognize cultural differences, challenge assumptions, and address social justice issues. Keeping Indigenous culture, language, and tradition alive today is crucial for several reasons. For example, 1. The preservation of cultural heritage. Indigenous cultures contribute to the rich tapestry of human diversity, offering unique perspectives on life, community, and the environment. Indigenous knowledge systems provide sustainable ways of living that can address contemporary issues like environmental conservation and climate change. 2. Rights and justice. Preserving Indigenous cultures respects the rights and dignity of Indigenous peoples, aligning with international agreements like the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It also promotes reparative justice for historical injustices faced by Indigenous communities. 3. Social and psychological benefits. Maintaining cultural practices strengthens community bonds and improves the well-being of Indigenous people. Preserving Indigenous languages helps maintain cultural continuity and gives individuals a sense of belonging and pride in their heritage. 4. Contributions to modern society. Indigenous practices often provide innovative solutions to contemporary problems, and Indigenous worldviews can influence modern practices in fields like medicine, education, and governance. 5. Study of historical Indigenous communities. Studying historical Indigenous communities provides a complete understanding of human history and offers valuable lessons in resilience, social organisation, and conflict resolution. The study of Indigenous culture is essential for education and the orange economy, which encompasses the creative industries. It promotes cultural awareness and sensitivity, enriches the curriculum, encourages critical thinking, and fosters a sense of place and environmental stewardship among students. For the orange economy, Indigenous cultures contribute unique artistic styles, narratives, and traditional knowledge which can inspire innovation in creative industries. Supporting Indigenous artists and creators opens up economic opportunities for these communities, promoting economic inclusion and development. Beyond this, actively encouraging tourists to interact within the museum space supports local economic growth and sustainability, and helps to disseminate awareness and understanding on a global scale. It is crucial for school children to understand Indigenous people from the country where they live. This fosters respect, cultural diversity, accurate historical understanding, social and civic responsibility, and environmental stewardship. It also promotes personal and community identity, educational enrichment, and recognition of Indigenous contributions to modern society. Learning lessons from our Indigenous ancestors about how to live in a better way today is crucial for sustainable living, community and social cohesion, health and well-being, cultural values and ethics, governance and leadership, cultural and artistic inspiration, ethical and philosophical insights, and addressing contemporary challenges. Indigenous knowledge systems offer practical solutions for adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change, and their practices can inform climate resilience strategies for communities worldwide.
Older Maya mestizos recount their school days with a sense of fear and humiliation. One testimony reveals teachers made fun of Maya folklore, ridiculed stories about magical duendes and frogs coming from the sky, and malign Maya mestizo villagers for speaking what they call inferior languages, that is, Spanish and Maya. They believed that English was the only worthwhile language and enforced an English-only policy in the schools. As punishment for students who lapse into Maya or Spanish, the teachers brought out the lash. This form of linguistic repression was not just a denial of language, but a direct attack on the cultural identity and dignity of Mayan children. Don Berto, a Yucatec Maya of Cayo, Belize, shares a similar story. Only my father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother, they used to speak in Maya. But when we children went to school, it was strictly prohibited to speak Maya. We were permitted only to speak English, and we were punished if we spoke Maya. The provision of their native languages in school not only hinders their education, but also creates a sense of shame and alienation from their cultural roots. Rick Castillo, a Yucatec Maya from Orange Rock, expresses the enduring pain of his cultural genocide. I still cry in my heart when I remember when I asked my granny and grandpa to teach me Maya, and they answer, no, hijo, las monjas y los de la escuela se van a molestar, meaning the people that administer the school don't want you to speak Maya. It burns till today. That was some 58 years ago. The refusal of elders to pass on the language out of fear of punishment and discrimination highlights the deep scars left by these policies.
The world has beautiful cultures, which are part of our rich diversity. The Maya is one of the living cultures in Belize. Today, there are three Maya groups: the Yucatec Maya, Quechua Maya, and Mopan Maya. There are also those who identify as mestizos, who are from Maya ancestry. The Maya culture is important because it reconnects us to our ancestors and to the land. Knowing the Maya culture is a way of educating people about their rich history of struggle and resistance, which can help them understand more about themselves and respect others. The Maya culture includes the use of medicinal plants, spirituality, creating a balance between humanity and nature. Maya is part of the Belizean identity. Losing the Maya culture would be a huge loss for humanity in many perspectives. In conclusion, keeping indigenous history alive is not only about preserving the past, but also about enriching the present and securing the future. By integrating indigenous knowledge, practices, and perspectives into our lives and economy, we can build a more peaceful and tolerant, resilient, equitable, and sustainable society. Thank you. Yum Botik.
Thank you all for these presentations in our final session at the KULCHA Symposium. I now invite our presenters for this afternoon session to join me as we have some dialogue, answer some questions from our audience below. So we have here Miss Adela, Mr. Mito, and Andy K.U.L.C.H.A. Now, I already have some questions that were sent to me. And I think this question, any one of you can answer. If we can all have like a dialogue about it, that would be great. So the question goes, as Yucatec Maya persons, what developments would you like to see in the orange economy to better represent your culture? And that question, I believe, can be answered by any one of you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adela. I will take a stab at this question. So for us, primarily is the preservation of the language. So we would like some support in getting our curriculum, our booklets out to the masses. And in the masses, I mean to the schools, the educational systems, so that the students can have a basic understanding of the Yucatec Maya language.
I think that's a great idea. And I think that this morning, Mr. Delmer Zib had a presentation when it comes to revitalizing language in the school. And particularly, I believe his institute is trying to bring indigenous languages to the university, I believe. So that's a start. But I feel like as an adult, it's a lot harder to learn a language than it is when you are a child. And I think if your parents talk to you in Yucatec or in Mupan or K.U.L.C.H.A, you get to grow with that language and it becomes part of your identity. So thank you so much, Ms. Adela, for answering that question. Andy or Mr. Mito, do you want to take a jab at the question? It says, as Yucatec Maya persons, what developments would you like to see in the orange economy to better represent your culture?
Hey, hello, this is Andy.
Hi, Andy.
I believe that there is a lot of work to be done, especially when it comes to the Yucatec Maya, because when we speak of cultures in Belize, especially on the north, the media, the schools totally ignore the Yucatec Maya. Like we are like ghosts in the society. And this is due because many schools, especially, they don't know the history of the village. And they try to push an identity to the children that does not belong to them. And in many cases, we would see teachers telling the children that they are mestizo or Hispanic, and that totally affects. But today, I have to say that I have seen a better representation of the Yucatec Maya. There's still a lot of work to be done. And we are seeing now museums, for the Yucatec Maya people. Now we are seeing books being represented, but there is a long road to go. So hopefully we would have a better representation in schools, especially because that is where it affects not only the identity, but also the language part. Because if the children do not know that they are Maya, because in their homes, they might tell them, but in school, they would tell them that they are something else. They would not want to learn their language because not all of us were really speaking Maya. Some of us, in our teens, we learned it because we felt the necessity to strengthen our identity. So I do believe that there's a lot of work to be done when it comes to the representation of the Maya. So hopefully, in the future, we would see that going on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that it is persons like yourselves in your nonprofit organization spearheading this movement to be able to safeguard your cultural language. So I wanted to do a breakdown, and I asked Sylvia to join me this afternoon because I think that a lot of people tend to misunderstand what we mean by orange economy. We had a great keynote yesterday morning. Mr. Ishmael Kiros from Beltrade kind of do a general breakdown of what the orange economy actually is. But for a lot of our Belizean persons, they might not really understand what we mean by that term. And I think that I wanted to ask Sylvia here for that dialogue, because when we were creating this theme, we were saying orange economy because we need to showcase the representation of our artisans, of our cultural creatives, and the way that they generate funds and they make money with their craft or with their art, in order to fuel the economy in Belize. And with that said, I wanted to also ask you all if you have what has been your experiences as cultural persons in Belize when it comes to selling your products, when it comes to selling parts of who you are and your identity and your culture within a product. I guess mainly for the tourism business. Have you had those experiences, and do you know anybody that has had those experiences in your area?
Thank you very much, April, for asking me to join in for, I guess, this portion of the call, but also for posing that question to the members on this call. For the cultural and creative industries, I think for HENB, it is very near and dear to us. If you look at some of our earlier programs or initiatives, our Heritage Highlights, for example, those were solely within the cultural and creative industries and looking at ways that we could have created more visibility for our community partners, and looking at ways in which we could sort of center the micro enterprises within Belize. And I think that sort of stems from you all on this call, looking at the work that Miss Adela has put out, looking at everything that you have put out, Andy, especially the music that you have engaged with, because I know sometimes when we think of Andy, we think of the Belize Yucatec Maya page, but what we don't think of is heavy metal in Maya, you know? And so there is a wealth of cultural expression in everything from craft, in everything from sort of traditional blouses like the ones that we're wearing, music, film, art, dance, and all of the intersections that encompasses. And while the wider sort of topic would be the cultural and creative industries in our everyday societies, as we have heard in these presentations this afternoon, there is also that sector of the indigenous or descendant communities and their expressions of culture, and where that intersects with the orange economy, with the cultural and creative industries. And I believe we're all sort of talking about these areas, we're all sort of delving into these areas, but it does help to contextualize what that can mean for our indigenous communities or rural communities or descendant communities. So on one end, we hear orange economy, and from a business perspective, that might mean that you are a micro enterprise, that you have, you know, this product that is centered within those expressions of culture. And on the community side, perhaps the way that we hear or process that information is, these are aspects of how I have always represented my culture, but there is an aspect of how that can be leveraged so that I can continue practicing my culture, so that I can preserve my culture, and so that there is some sort of financial benefit or income from that, and so that that can be done safely. So again, Andy, please, when you talk about yourself, include those aspects of your heavy metal in Maya, and I hope you're still creating music as well. But back to the question that you had posed to the presenters, April, in terms of do you mind circling back to that question so that our presenters can address it?
Right. So I wanted to basically have the presenters, or I would like the presenters to share their experiences, whether it's their experience or their community's experience when it comes to contributing to the orange economy, and if you've seen growth in your community. And the question does stem from what Sylvia was saying and why we started HENB in the first place, because we understood that the cultural creatives, the artisans, the musicians, they are they are the ones that keep the orange economy flowing in Belize, particularly when it comes to contributing to their tourism. Without you all, we wouldn't have cultural crafts. Without you, we wouldn't have drum making. We wouldn't have textiles and embroidery. We wouldn't have any of these things. And so I think that for this platform, we really wanted to hone in on those skills when it comes to our cultural communities. And so if you would be so gracious to share the experiences of the orange economy in your community. Ms. Adela, would you like to tackle that question first? Oh, your mic is off.
Okay, should be on now. It's good? Okay, great. Yeah, in the area of the orange economy, for us as the members of Tone Masewalon, it's a new conversation because the intention of our group is to be authentically Maya. And that means being Maya, living in harmony with nature. And so everything that encompasses being authentically Maya is you could consider a byproduct of being Maya, but the essence is to be real, to know who you are and be real. So now we see a lot of people coming towards us, gravitating towards us to reap the rewards of that effort. So we are willing to embrace that conversation with other people, other entities, as you mentioned, the tourism. Tourism, yes, for us it's important, but honestly, it's not vital to us. What's vital is for us to keep our culture alive, keep the traditions, keep the spirituality alive, because it's the spirituality that connects us to our ancestors and will also forge the future for us. So it's all well and good, and it's a conversation that, yes, we are open to embracing.
Beautiful. Mr. Paz or Ande, would you guys like to share?
Well, I have to say that I rarely speak about my project, right? But I have to say that I grew up in a Maya community, but I did not really express it much, right? And I have to say that thanks to music, I started to focus a lot more in my Maya heritage. I have to say that a heavy metal band called Topec from Mexico, I saw them that they were singing in Nahuatl language, and that actually made me want to know more of my own heritage. So I have to say that when it comes to the musical part, I have this project called Hanal Pishan, which we have released 2 full-length albums, and it was recognized as one of the best rock albums 2018 by Metal Apocalypse from United Kingdom, and the idea is to find new ways on how we can attract a younger generation, because when you speak of cultural preservation, sometimes it becomes very difficult, because not all the youths have this mind that they want to do things traditionally. And sadly, our world is changing and we need to find new ways. And I have seen a whole movement in Mexico by rappers like Pat Boy, MC Sima, that they are singing in their language, or singing about their Maya culture. And I feel that that can help a younger generation to reconnect with themselves, reconnect with who they are. So through music, it made me feel more interested on my own culture. And then I reconnected with Miss Adela and Antone Masewalon, and I started to collect prayers. And I have to thank Miss Adela and Mr. Roy for always being there. And they have been, like, we need uh, people that can continue the Maya spirituality. So one thing led me to another, and I do believe that Mayaness, la Mayanidad, in these times can be expressed through different ways, and we can use technology, modern music, the modernity to continue transmitting our Maya culture, our Maya knowledge to a younger generation. That is where our culture will live.
I really love that because I think that when we think about music in a different language or in an indigenous language, we kind of don't see ourselves in it for some strange reason. I don't know why. But I love that you created such a space for yourself and you combined your indigenous identity with your creative identity in order to shape this newfound Hana Pishan, where I could find this album. I'd try find it on YouTube right now.
Uh, well, Hanal Pishan, we have two albums, but we were so lucky that we released our last album to a Brazilian label named I, is Perseverance Records from Brazil. So they're the ones that approach us to release it. And Hanal Pishan, I have to clear that it's not only the Maya, speaking of Maya culture, but we also have included flutes. They are giving it a more pre-Hispanic taste of music. But yes, it's for download. You can find it in YouTube. We actually have a new music video called it's called K.U.L.C.H.A, which means El Canto del Alma, the song of the soul, and it speaks about that as a Maya there is time for planting, time to have fun, but there is also time to honor our ancestors. So that's what that song speaks about. It's on YouTube and on Facebook at the moment.
Okay. I had to ask because small marketing plug there, right? We want our Belizean people to know about this music as well. So congratulations, and they make sure it goes on Spotify because apparently that's a new thing now. Everybody goes on Spotify and Apple Music and all of these different ways, and it's such a great way to break into this industry. So thank you guys for your amazing, amazing contribution. I have one more question as a part of our panel, but I feel like we've been talking about it already in terms of the way that you all have been trying to safeguard your indigenous language. But apart from the presentations, and I know Ms. Adela has been working instrumental in this and they as well, but can each of you talk a little bit more about the work of Tony Masawalon and the way that you all have been trying to safeguard your indigenous language? I know for Miss Adela, you have collaborated with like Miss Felicita to do the national anthem in Yucatec. So what are some other projects and ways that you all have been working to safeguard your language?
Well, in the area of the language, we continue to have a Maya language school classes for the children and also for the adults. And like I mentioned, we came out with our first booklet. It's geared towards children age, but it's also good for any adult who may not understand the language because it's very basic. So any adult can pick up that booklet. But in the area of cultural preservation, we address every aspect of the culture. You mentioned the attire, we also have the food. My goodness, are we good at preserving the food area? Thanks to Doña Henara, who cooked authentically Maya dishes. We have the halal Yucatec Maya cuisine establishment, and you can go there and enjoy the Maya food anytime. So the area of spirituality is very vital, and we continue to pass that on, especially to the children, and teaching them the importance of living in harmony with nature, because that's the essence of everything. If we don't respect nature, we're going to be without a healthy earth. So that is vital. But every area of the culture is what we are addressing. And that's why our action list is very extensive, because every day we continue to work on these various items. I want to mention also that in the area of the folklore, Mr. Andy Chuk has been very vital with that, coming up with different stories about, the different things he talks about, the Nukutat and different things, but you can see that on our Tone Masewalon Facebook page. But that has been an area that he has tackled very well.
Yes, thank you, Miss Adela. And yes, we have seen Andy's work. I told him he needs to do a book. Let's let's hear from Mr. Mito Paz if he is able to talk to us a little bit about his work and what he has been doing to safeguard his indigenous heritage. Mr. Mito, are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. What the Eco Museum is trying to accomplish is to showcase the different people that settle in Ambergris-Key, have like a timeline from the Mayas and showcase how they used to live all the way to the establishment of the K.U.L.C.H.A. But we want to link that to ecotourism, and one of the things that we are doing is working with artisans. We have a couple artisans that that specialize on creating crafts from conch, the conch shell. So they do trumpets and all kind of different artifacts that they sell. There's one family that works with conch shell, and then we have another guy that works with coconuts. So he does different crafts, um, and promotes his art. So the museum is a venue where we encourage people to come up with different arts, that are and different than your other arts. So that's how the museum is trying to help preserve our culture through the arts and crafts, and also just education, just bringing field trips, from the schools to visit the museum and have a whole day and of history and the food and the music. So that's how we try to preserve the different culture of the island.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mito. As we wrap up our final Q&A, I think the question that is on everyone's mind is, what are you excited most about the future in your respective fields?
I will go with that. It's completing on one of our missions, part of our mission statement, which is to connect the people of the Maya ancestry through the language. So as in the previous presentations you had, I heard that there was still some grief about not being able to speak your language in your school, in the school that you attended. So if in the future, we would like to see the adults, the children, everyone speaking in their native language and being proud of doing that.
Andy, Mr. Mito?
On my part, I would totally agree what Ms. Adela said, that in a future, our Maya language would be spoken again in the streets as how it used to be. Because at the moment, we already know that it is an endangered language, but not only the language part, but that people would reconnect with their Maya heritage and say, I am Maya, soy Maya, tene Maya. And so for me, that would be a beautiful future.
Thank you, Andy. And finally, Mr. Mito?
Yes, I totally agree with those statements that we need to do more, especially with the kids, and teach them more about the Maya language. Um, when I went to school, it was never taught, and even the people that speak Maya language didn't want to teach you how to speak the Maya. So that would be a nice um, nice feeling, nice future to have more people talking the Maya language.
I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us for our final session for our KULCHA Symposium, Ms. Adela, Mr. Mito, and I think that this is the first time we've only had Indigenous presenters in one session. We've actually never had that before. I'm just realizing that, yeah, Ms. Adela, Andy, and Mr. Mito, this is the first time in KULCHA history where we have only Indigenous presenters. So please give yourselves a round of applause because that is just incredible, on another milestone for preserving, educating, and promoting Indigenous heritage in Belize. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yumbote.
Yumbote Kanantaba.
Okay. All right, and that does it, Sylvia, for our end of KULCHA. It was short and sweet. And we would like to invite co-director Ella Bekeshi on screen, as well as our IT director, Mr. Marco Vasquez. Guys, we pulled it off even though Becca isn't here. I know she's watching and she's here in spirit. She did a lot of the organizing and back end work, and so we're so grateful for her and for all of the work that she's done. But we would like to, first of all, thank you, all of our presenters, every single one of them that pulled through, sent the video, sent the information that we needed. I know that this year the theme was quite difficult. I think that this is why we needed this presentation, this symposium, because we've been boosting and talking about orange economy and this great thing, but what's out there? What is out there, and what are Belizeans talking about, and what are people researching? And we've realized that there's a lot more work to be done in terms of this theme, this particular area, and how it's going to boost Belize. So great job, Hendy team. And I will leave last words for Sylvia, Ella, and Marco.
Ella. I knew it.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who presented, everyone who showed, any interest in KULCHA, especially for our returning presenters, our returning viewers. Thank you for your questions, because we wouldn't have a Q&A section without those questions. And I especially found that this year the Q&A sections were very, very interesting. Not that the other years are not interesting, but we had such great conversations. And so I really appreciate everyone who took part in those. And I also really, really appreciate you guys, my co-directors, and Marco, our official forever savior of of all things IT. It's always a very, very nice time for us. It comes with a lot of stress and a lot of planning, and then at the end it's really, really nice because we don't all live in the same location, so we don't always get to see each other, and we are all overwhelmed with our lives. But when we actually do KULCHA Symposium, where we get to spend, in fact, we have to spend a lot of hours together and problem solve together, which is just such fun for me. And so I really, really love this time of the year. And yes, so just big thank you.
Okay,
Sylvia?
well,
For Marco.
For Marco.
Well, for me, it's been a while I haven't worked with you guys, right, on an event, and
Um, One thing I have to say is that I did miss it. I did miss being part of these kind of events, listening to the presentations. Very interesting. Um, I joined the team for this very late, but we managed to pull it off, and it was quite exciting. All right, and you ladies are doing a fantastic job. I know you guys are very busy with your own lives and whatnot, and to be honest, it's you guys are doing really really well.
Marco, don't do that.
Thank you very much, Marco, for everything that you have done, continue to do for Hendy. Yeah, culture is not the same without you. So thank you. Absolute gratitude.
It would be much more stressful without you.
Thank you for taking the time out to join us on the stream. Yeah, I guess it's over to my ball court. Yes, I think echoing what April has shared and what Ella has shared, just extreme and profound gratitude for everyone who came together to make the fourth KULCHA Symposium a reality. Especially big shout out to Nadimi and to Dr. Ali Villarreal. I like how Ali has termed that we're a volunteer-led event. And really and truly what we have done and what we have been able to accomplish has really only been possible through the synergies with other communities. Hendy is what it is because it is a reflection of our community partners who are lifelong friends now. And we continue to do what we do in order to create platforms, in order to create visibility, in order to foster those connections and to constantly engage and find different ways to support each other, and to continue expressing both our own journeys, our own personal life journeys, and the journeys that our community members are going through. In a way, we are all reflections of each other. And so supporting you all is by extension supporting ourselves. We're all one big community working toward the same direction and the same goal. And as Ella likes to mention as well, one of her sort of Ella quotes that really always
What is
land.
coming?
Ella always says that the more people you have working toward either a goal or a project or an initiative means that there is more opportunity to be able to achieve it, more opportunity to be able to succeed in that. And the more competition there is, it means that there are more people working toward the same goal, and that ultimate outcome of the betterment of our communities. And having a bunch of people working on the same area or topic means that we have space to fill other gaps. And in that way, we don't necessarily see competition. What we see is spaces and opportunities for growth and spaces and opportunities for us all to continue supporting each other, and continue to work toward the futures that we want to see for ourselves. And so with that, we, I guess, wrap up the fourth KULCHA Symposium with absolute gratitude for everybody who has been with us in this iteration of our journeys, and with excitement and hope for what the future will bring in terms of projects, in terms of collaborations, in terms of future platforms like this, future initiatives. And we're excited about that. So thank you very
Thank you
much
all.
for
Bye.
keeping up with language, culture, heritage, and the arts. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.